This webcast is going to look at basic correlation in BizTalk Server. It's one of a series of BizTalk Server webcasts hosted on the bloggersguide.net site. My name is Alan Smith and I'm a BizTalk MVP and I work as a BizTalk consultant in Stockholm. Well, it's basically a level 200 webcast. It's not going to be too advanced, just looking at some fairly basic stuff. We're going to look at basically how to implement correlation. We're then going to look a bit about how correlation works. We're going to look at the different types of subscriptions, activation subscriptions and instance subscriptions, and take a look at how correlation works within the BizTalk Server message box database. I'm starting with a basic solution containing one orchestration and one XSD schema. The XSD schema I've built for a very simple expenses claim. I've just got some header info, some claim info, some employee info, and I started building a business process for the expenses approval as an orchestration. So this is just the first received shape. The orchestration is triggered by an expenses claim message coming in, and that's going to generate an instance of the orchestration. I've got the activate property set to true there. So what I'm going to do is to send out that message. The message that I've got in is the expenses claim message, and I'm going to select that and send out the expenses claim message using a new configured port, and this is going to be called expense claim out. I'm going to use the existing port type of expense claim port type. I've already got that defined, so I'm going to reuse that within my orchestration. I'll always be sending messages on this port, and port binding is going to be specified later. So that's that port generated. I'm going to link that up to the send shape there and just give the send shape the name of expense claim, so we know the message that is being sent out from there. So once the claim has been approved, we're going to get the approval coming back in, and in my orchestration the approval message is going to be this expense approval message here. So what I'm going to do is to create a receive shape that's going to receive this, and I'll just copy the name of the message into this receive shape. And then generate a port for this. I'll specify the message as well, so it's going to be MSG expense approval. And I'm going to generate a receive port which is based on this, which will be claim approval in. Again, I'm going to reuse the existing port type. I'm going to always be receiving messages, specify later port binding, and click on finish there and make that link. Now once the expense claim has been approved, I'm going to send it off back to the source system. So I'm going to have another send port here, which will be claim approval out. Again, reusing the same port type. I'll always be sending messages on this port. Click on next and click on finish there. And a send shape to send the message, so dropping this on, I'm going to be sending out the expense approval message. And make that link up there. So now as far as my business process is going, the actual structure flow is complete. If I try to compile this, we get the error message saying you must specify at least one already initialized correlation set for a non-activation receive that is on a non-self-correlating port. We fairly often see this when we're building orchestrations if we forget to set the activate property to true on the first receive shape. But this is actually a message telling us that we need to implement correlation in our orchestration. The error is occurring on this expenses approval receive shape. So going back to our schema, we need to go through the steps for initializing correlation. The first thing we've got to do is to find a unique value within our schema that we can correlate on. And looking in the header, you can see we've got a claim ID here. And I'm going to make the assumption that claim ID is going to be unique for all these specific claims that are running through this system. The next thing we need to do is to set claim ID as being a promoted property, and we'll see why this is a bit later on when we look at how the correlation messages are routed in BizTalk Server. So I'm going to add a new item to this project, and it is going to be a property schema, and I'll call it PS claim ID. I'm going to rename this property to claim ID and save this file, and then go back to my expense claims.xsd. Instead of using a quick promotion, I'm going to take the long-winded approach and just specify that I'm going to include the property schema that I've just defined there, the PS claim ID, and I'm going to promote claim ID against claim ID in this property schema there. Click on OK. So now claim ID is a promoted property. I'm just going to build my project there, and we're still getting that error there. Going into the orchestration, I'm going to think about the artifacts that I need for correlating the messages. I'm going to need a definition of how I correlate messages, which is going to be this correlation type here. So I'm going to right click, generate a new correlation type, and we should see in correlation demo that because claim ID is a promoted property, it's appearing here in the artifacts that I can use in this correlation set. So I'm going to click on OK there, and OK that again, and I'm going to give it the name of claim ID correlation type there. Now that's the actual type definition. I need to generate an instance of that correlation set, and I'm going to do that in the orchestration variables, and this is going to be claim ID correlation set there. I'm going to specify that the correlation type that we're going to be based on is going to be the claim ID correlation type there, and save that. Now I've defined my correlation set. You may remember that the build error was saying that we need to specify at least one already initialized correlation set on a null activation receive that is in a non-self-correlating port. So first of all, we need to initialize the correlation set in this send shape when we're actually sending a message from the orchestration. And then we need to be following or specifying the correlation set in this expenses approval. So if we look on this send shape here, if I expand the properties a bit, we can see that we've got the option to initialize a correlation set here. I'm going to specify that it's a claim ID correlation set that we initialize. On the expenses approval here, we need to be following a correlation set when we receive the message, and I'm going to specify that it's a claim ID correlation set here that we are following. So now if I do a build on my project, we should hopefully see that we've got no errors and no warnings on that. We have got a successful build of that orchestration here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to deploy this to BizTalk Server, and then actually run some messages through so we can see how the correlation is working here. I'll pause the video whilst I do the deploy and return when everything is up and running. So I've deployed the solution to BizTalk Server. You can see the correlations demo application is started. We've got the orchestration there, and we've got some send ports and some receive ports. The way I've configured this is I've got my 3 test documents here, and I've got 4 file locations. So the orchestration is connected up with expense claim in and expense claim out here, connected to this folder here, expense claim in and expense claim out. And then when the messages are approved, we've got claim approval in and claim approval out going to these 2 file locations here. My 3 test messages, this one has claim ID 1 as the claim ID, second one has claim ID 2, and third one has claim ID 3. So we do have unique claim IDs on all 3 of these documents. So what I'm going to do is to take a copy of claim ID 1 and to drop this one in expenses, the expenses claim in. So that file disappeared very quickly, and in expenses claim out we get one of the expenses claim forms waiting for approval. And in the administration console, if we run a query just on all service instances, we should see that we've got an active orchestration, which is based on the claim approval process that we've got in the correlations demo application. So taking the second expenses claim, if I take a copy of this and drop this into expenses claim in, we've got another document awaiting approval. And we've got another instance of that orchestration which has been generated. And then taking the third one here, the one with claim ID 3, taking a copy of that, dropping this into expenses claim in, we've got 3 messages waiting for approval, and we've got 3 active orchestrations. Now all of the orchestrations are waiting here in this receive shape for the appropriate claim approval to come back in. And because I'm using correlation, the responses will be correlated to the correct orchestration instance. So the one that was activated and is processing claim ID 1 will be triggered by getting the claim approval with the claim ID of claim ID 1. So what we can do is to send these back in. If I open up one of these approvals, this is the one with claim ID 2, and I'm going to actually move this, instead of copying it from the expenses claim out into the claim approval in. And we should see that we get the claim approval coming out for claim ID 2, and in the administration console here, if I run the query, one of our orchestrations has completed. And I can do this for the remaining two. This is the one with claim ID 1. Move this one across into the claim approval in. Another orchestration gets completed, and the same thing with the one with claim ID 3. This one's going to be moved across to claim approval in. So we've got 3 documents now, and all of the orchestrations have been completed there. So a quick look inside the message box at how this works. What I'm going to do is to generate a new query here, and I'm going to query for all of the subscriptions. We get a lot of subscriptions appearing, so what I'm going to do is to limit this by the service name and select the claim approval orchestration. So you can see now that we've only got one subscription present here. I'll just rename this query to subscriptions. If I run this, you can see that we've got one subscription present on this orchestration, which is an activation subscription. And the expression says here that we've basically got a receive port ID that we're listening to, and this is a GUID. And we've also got the message type that we're listening to, and the orchestration is always subscribed to, if we specify them to receive a particular message, to that actual message type there. So it's the correlation demo dot expenses claim is the target namespace, and expenses claim is the actual root node of the schema that it's expecting here. So that's the type of message. Now, if I send out a message through again, I'm going to basically delete these files from claim approval out and run the message through. I'm taking the one with claim ID 1, copying this and dropping this into the expenses claim in folder. And again, this is going to generate an instance of my orchestration, and we've got a claim which is waiting for approval here. So this query here, if I rename this to instances, just run this query, you can see that we do have one active orchestration here. If I go to subscriptions and run this query, you can see that another subscription has been generated. And this subscription, instead of being an activation subscription, it's an instance subscription. It still belongs to the same service that we've got, the expenses approval service. But if you look in the expression, we'll see that it's slightly different from the activation subscription. We are subscribing based on a receive port ID here, and we are subscribing based on a message type. But we've also got a section in the subscription which is listening for a specific claim ID, and that is claim ID 1. So this subscription is an instance subscription. It was generated by the orchestration because we have configured correlation. And it's the subscription belongs to this specific orchestration instance. So this orchestration instance is subscribing to the message that has a specific claim ID present on it. I can do the same thing with the other two. If I take 2 and 3 here, copy these two, drop them into expenses claim in, and run the query on the instances. We've now got 3 active orchestrations, and in the subscriptions section we've got another 2 of these XIS subscriptions, these instance subscriptions. This one is listening for claim ID 2, and this one here is listening for claim ID 3. And as I start to send back the response messages for this, if I go into the expenses claim out and move across this one, which is for claim ID 3, we're publishing a message into the message box database that fulfills that subscription that is listening for claim ID 3. And that is what triggers the orchestration to pick up that message. So if I run the query now, you can see one instance has gone, and also that subscription for claim ID 3, which I think was this one here. If I run the query, that subscription has disappeared, and we're only listening for claim ID 2 and claim ID 1. And in turn, these 2 subscriptions, they will be removed if I take these 2 expenses claims and move those across into the claim approval in. I fulfill both of those subscriptions. I get my 3 outbound messages. Back in the group hub page, we can see that all the instances have completed. And if I run this on the subscriptions, you'll see that those 2 instance subscriptions disappear, and we're just left with the activation subscription. So what we've seen is how we can configure correlation within an orchestration when we're sending out a message and asynchronously receiving a response on that message. The steps that we go through is to firstly identify a unique field within our schema, and I'm choosing a claim ID. Secondly, we are generating a promoted property on that. I'm generating my property schema there, and if I look in the property promotions here, you can see that the claim ID there in the header is promoted against claim ID in that schema there. I'm then defining within my orchestration correlation type in the type section, which is the expenses, the claim ID correlation type. And this is actually based, if we edit it, it's actually based on the correlation demo.claim ID, that promoted property there. And I've generated a correlation set here, and this correlation set is based on that correlation type. It's activated here in this receive shape, this send shape here. I've configured this to initialize the correlation set, and here I've configured it to forward a specific correlation set in this receive shape. And then we've seen how this is managed in BizTalk Server's message box database by the actual instance subscriptions that get generated every time we generate an orchestration that is using a correlation.